Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, welcome back to another Destiny 2 video, and in this video we are going to be taking a look at the revised Voidwalker subclass for the Warlocks. Of course, in the beta, each of the playable classes has two different subclasses for you to choose from, and in the case of the Warlock, you have the brand new Dawnblade and the revised Voidwalker. And while Dawnblade is cool and new and fancy, we've seen plenty of that, I've got videos on that, and in truth, Voidwalker has always been my favourite subclass for the Warlocks. In fact, way back in the Destiny 1 Alpha, the Voidwalker Warlock was the very first character class that I actually played as, way before I discovered my love for the Hunters. So, a little bit of history there. But either way, in this video, we're going to dive in, take a look at the subclass tree, take a look at the abilities, see how it's changed, because while this will be familiar to those of you guys that used to run Voidwalker in Destiny 1, there are some pretty sweet changes. So if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below, let me know what you guys think. But let's kick things off by diving into the tree itself. Right at the epicenter is, of course, the Nova Bomb, the signature of the Voidwalker. This will allow you to hurl an explosive bolt of void light at the enemy, disintegrating those caught within its blast. Now that, in itself, is pretty standard. You press L1 and R1 together, it shoots it out, and it does some pretty good damage. But of course, don't forget that in the beta, or in the final game, you'll of course spec into one of the two different paths. In this case, we're spec'd into the Attunement of Chaos. So that's actually going to drastically change the way that the Nova Bomb behaves, and we'll get onto that in just a moment. So, moving on from there, you of course have your bog standard grenades. You have the Vortex grenade, so this creates a vortex that continually damages enemies trapped inside. And again, if you've played Voidwalker before, then you'll be familiar with, well, all of these. Your other option is, of course, Axion Bolt, so a bolt of void light that forks into smaller bolts on impact that seek out enemies. And, of course, you also have the Scatter Grenade, so a grenade that splits into many sub-munitions and covers a large area with multiple explosions. So those are your three different grenades. Again, pretty bog standard, nothing really new there, apart from the fact that, as I've said in the previous videos, grenades are still a valuable part of your arsenal, but they're not as potent as before, so you won't necessarily be getting the kind of one-hit kills with grenades. You will still need to kind of like do some follow-up damage, but either way, still very important. However, if we then go up the path to the Attunement of Chaos, first things first, when I read this is incredible. I really like this ability. Chaos Accelerant, you can hold down L1 to draw power from your super to overcharge your grenade, making it deadlier and more effective. So while yes, I did say that the grenades as they stand aren't necessarily as potent as they used to be, with this you can actually sacrifice some of your super to power up your grenade. Now you don't have to have max super, this doesn't have to be when your bar is yellow. Basically anytime you have an amount of super in your bar, then you can hold down L1. Now of course L1 by default is the button to throw grenades. So if you then want to power it up and hold it for a bit, the longer you hold it, the more super it consumes. So if you decided you wanted to kind of walk around with this charged for, say, like a whole minute, then it's going to constantly eat into your super. So you want to try and think about this sensibly, because you are, of course, eating into a very valuable resource. But in the event that you do want to turn, like, you know, your Axion Bolt or your Scatter Grenades or your Vortex Grenades into a more powerful version, then you hold down L1, it charges it, you'll actually see kind of the way that the sort of animation indicates that it's now more powerful, and then as soon as you let go, it'll throw out a more powerful version of that. So that is really cool. It's definitely going to be one of those things where you'll of course have to manage your super accordingly, because if you do rely on this too much, then you could be in a position where you just end up kind of never having your super if you keep dipping into this. But hey, that might work for you. So either way, that is very cool. On top of that, you also have Bloom, so void ability kills cause enemies to explode. You have Entropic Pull, where if you strike an enemy with a melee ability, you drain the enemy's life force and use it to recharge your grenade. So of course you can then get your grenades more frequently after melees. But the really cool thing, and this is of course why we went down the Attunement of Chaos, is Cataclysm. Nova Bomb travels slowly and seeks enemies. Detonations shatter into smaller seeker projectiles, and you can fire your weapon at the Nova Bomb to detonate it early. So we saw this last week in the IGN kind of quick Crucible gameplay when they showed some Voidwalker stuff, and it basically looked like a big sort of Super Saiyan Spirit Bomb. You throw it down, travels quite slowly, and it does home in on your targets. Now this, as you see here, is a pretty standard one. I left it to do its thing, it homes in on a target, it explodes, and once it does, it then kind of splits into smaller ones, which then seek out some nearby enemies and also do some pretty significant damage. However, if you kind of factor in that you might want to like throw it down a corridor and then detonate it slightly earlier to either trick people, because some people might think they can run out the way and then suddenly you detonate it and then there's a big explosion, or alternatively you might just want to sort of try and get more enemies than, say, the one that it's specifically homing in on. So either way, if you decide you want to set it off early, then you just shoot it and it explodes. Pretty damn awesome. Really, really like that. I can definitely see kind of lots and lots of utility for that one, especially with kind of trash mobs and large groups of enemies. You can kind of fire it at the top, maybe it'll sort of home in on a target at the back, and then you just detonate it early and really mess people up. And again, in the Crucible as well, someone might think they're outrunning it, or someone might think they kind of got a chance, and then suddenly you set it off early, and then bam. So that's pretty cool. However, if you go down the bottom path, instead, you have the option for Devour. So you kill an enemy with this melee ability to fully regenerate your health, and for a short time afterwards, kills restore additional health. So not only do you get your full health back if you land a kill, but also subsequent kills will then continue to regenerate your health for a little bit of time. Do bear in mind you have to get the melee kill. It's not like a melee attack, but if you do get the kill, then of course it's going to be very useful. On top of that, you have Vortex, so your Nova Bomb instead creates a singularity which continually damages enemies trapped inside. So this will, instead of being the slower version, will probably be slightly more in line with what you're used to. So for those of you guys that perhaps want like a bit more kind of like instant impact, you might go down this tree instead. You also have Insatiable, where the Devour effect is active, killing enemies extends its duration and recharges your grenades. And Feed the Void, where if you hold down L1, you consume your grenade energy to regenerate your health. And this grants the Devour effect. So, kind of like how on the Achievement of Chaos tree, you can consume your super to feed your grenade. Instead, in this situation, if you decide you need some health, you can consume your grenades to then get some health back. The interesting thing here as well is to think about whether or not there will be any armor pieces in Destiny 2, kind of like how they were in Destiny 1, where you can get 2 grenades. I don't know whether there will be. If there are, that could be pretty potent, because you'll then have 2 effectively like medkits you can call on, and of course you can then trigger the Devour perk to then make it so that when you kill enemies, it extends the duration and then recharges your grenade. So again, nice synergy there. You consume your grenades, you heal up, you then have a kind of perk that can then continually regenerate your grenades, so it's a pretty cool cycle. As for your jumps, pretty standard here. You have Strafe Glide, so jump while airborne to activate Glide and start an airborne drift with strong directional control. You also have Blink, so for those of you guys that do prefer that in kind of PvP situations, that is of course an option. And you also have Burst Glide, so jump whilst airborne to kind of activate Glide again, but this time you have a strong initial boost of speed. So Control, Speed, or of course Blink. And then finally, again, your class abilities. These are your 2 rifts. You either have the Healing Rift, so you place it on the ground, and then anyone that stands in that Well of Light will continuously heal whilst inside it. Or alternatively, you have the damaging one, Empowering Rift, so whilst you stand in there, again, anyone in there will then get their weapon damage increased, which is going to be great for boss fights. And since we now know that the Sentinel bubble, or the kind of, the Ward of Dawn they have, doesn't give you anything like Weapons of Light, then the typical strategy going forward for any kind of boss encounters is going to be like a Sentinel with an Empowering Rift behind, if you want to kind of try and replicate that sort of Weapons of Light feeling. So very important. I personally run with Empowering Rift pretty much all the time, unless I'm in a situation where I feel like I need healing, but generally speaking, I would rather take the damage boost. So, that, my friends, is a look at the Voidwalker Warlock. That is the revised Voidwalker. Again, I had a lot of fun playing with this one. I do really, really like the kind of new Spirit Bomb slow-moving one. I think it's one of those things where it probably will get a little bit more utility in PvE than it will PvP, because I feel like the speed at which it travels, people might be able to kind of like anticipate it a little bit more, and it might not be quite as effective, but who knows, until we can actually use it for, an extended period of time. It's a little bit early to kind of say on that front. But either way, really cool, had a lot of fun with it, definitely like some of these changes. I also like how there's kind of like some really nice synergy between some of these different paths, so they definitely really kind of like thought about some of these abilities. So that's it for the time being. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to test this out as well. Let me know what you guys think, and if you guys are on Xbox and jumping in tomorrow, then similarly, let me know what you guys think when you get a chance to go hands-on. For the time being, thanks for watching. If you guys missed the Sentinel video, I'll link it down below. You can check that out. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.